This is Speaking of Pets podcast, where we give you up-to-date, accurate, science-based information when making decisions about your pet's health.
From experts in dermatology like my sister, surgery, internal medicine, CBD use in pets, the pet food industry, you name it. If it affects pets, we'll talk about it.
Today's Speaking of Pets podcast is sponsored by Blue Buffalo, the maker of natural pet foods. Love them like family, feed them like family. Blue Buffalo offers wholesome, meat-first recipes with high-quality natural ingredients in flavors dogs and cats love. Discover formulas for all breed sizes, life stages, and lifestyles. And with Blue Buffalo's True Blue Promise, that assures that real meat is the first ingredient, with no poultry byproducts, no corn, wheat, or soy, and no artificial flavors or preservatives. We are the Novotny sisters from Cleveland, Ohio.
Dying to meet the Kelsey brothers because we were all raised in Cleveland.
And find out about their pets. And we went to Euclid High, which the Euclid Panthers really wiped the floor with the Cleveland Heights Tigers, where the Kelseys went. So
that's true.
Yeah.
That is true.
We are not intimidated.
That's right.
We are so honored to have Judge Nancy Margaret Russo with us today. She is a judge in the Court of Common Pleas for Cuyahoga County. That has jurisdiction over felony criminal matters and also generalized civil cases. She's also the co-founder of the Northeast Ohio Faith Challenge and Prison Ministry. She's been in private practice, corporate practice. She's been a lecturer. She's a member of the First Amendment trial teams for national and local media such as ABC, NBC. Twice in a row, she was picked Judge of the Year by the Parents of Murdered Children, Judge of the Year by Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and in 2017 was given the NAACP Coretta Scott King Award by the Grafton Inmates. She got her undergrad degree from West Liberty State University in West Liberty, West Virginia, then got her law degree at Cleveland State University Marshall's College of Law, and then her master's in public administration at Cleveland State. We are so honored to have her with us today, and rumor has it she has a new addition, which has an entourage and goes to work with her. But we also want to discuss with Judge Russo the animal abuse laws in Ohio and what we as regular citizens can do to improve on those. Anyway, Janet, we are so honored to welcome Judge Nancy Margaret Russo, who we just found out you are sorority sisters.
Yay!
Kyle, yay! X and a horseshoe.
Yep. We could do the secret handshake. I still remember the words.
Me too, but we can't do it online like this.
Can't.
I'm dying to know that because Judge Russo, when I was in vet school, Janet got me hooked up with Libby, who was the house manager for the Kyle House in Columbus.
At Ohio
and
State.
I rented a room from her in Upper Arlington, and that's really the only way I could go to vet school. Because, so sometimes I'm like an almost Chi Omega, because I would be upstairs studying, and they sometimes had meetings down in Libby's living room.
And Carol that lived there was a Kyle.
Oh, yes. A dental hygienist, Carol, rented a room from Libby, too. So it was like I was surrounded by Chios, so I think I absorbed some of it.
Well, you wouldn't want to go through Hell Week.
Oh, is it really as bad as
Mine was.
we hear? Oh.
We cannot say.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, Judge Russo, one other thing. I first met Judge Russo when she brought her dog Maximus into me. And you know what? I remember your mother came to that appointment.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and such a lovely lady. Maximus was a really cool dog. He had a very serious skin problem, but we got him through it. And did he live to like 15 or 16?
16. In fact, his birthday was 2 days ago. He would have been 24.
Oh, that's right. It
What
was
kind
in.
of dog?
What kind of dog was Maximus?
Miniature Schnauzer.
Oh,
I rescued
so
him.
cute.
So
I forgot to tell you, Janet, that of all the organizations Judge Russo volunteers and is involved with, the one that I love the most is the Ohio Miniature Schnauzer Rescue.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
So tell us about the new addition who goes to work with you and has the entourage.
Lorenzo Umberto Russo He's a German Italian dog, apparently.
Okay.
But yes, he is a phantom schnauzer. So he's black and white. He's 3 months old. And normally I rescue, but I thought, I'd really like to have a puppy. And the last puppy I had was Maximus all those years ago because of being in rescue. So I found a very nice woman who's a very responsible breeder near Mansfield, retired dental hygienist, always had schnauzers, and picked him up May 11th. And I've been taking him to work. He's extremely social. And I'm actually thinking about getting him certified as a therapy dog because I have lawyers coming in, civil and criminal, all day asking to see him. And I just go out and do my work and leave the dog in my office with all these strangers. And he's having a great time. And then I've been talking to a colleague who's in the middle, actually, of a child rape trial. And the child testifying is having a very hard time getting through it. And he said, "What do you think?" And I said, "Well, if you want, I'll bring Lorenzo in the next time and Lorenzo can sit with her." Because a lot of courts do have therapy dogs. We do not. But I have had children in cases come play. When I used to bring Angel, they would come play with Angel on breaks and things. And it does help calm people down, whether they're children or adults. I think dogs are a very important part of a court process.
So,
Well,
I know you have your JD, you have your law degree, and then how do you become a judge? Are you elected, or do you have to run for office? How does that work?
Yeah, you have to run for office. You have 6-year terms. You can be appointed, but if you're appointed for a vacancy, then you have to run for the next election. So some states, all judges are appointed by the governor. In Ohio, they're appointed only by vacancy, and then they have to run for election. So
do you specialize like in one area, like work with children, with animal abuse, or is it everything?
in Ohio, I'm what's called a general division judge. So I handle all criminal cases from misdemeanors, which can also be handled in municipal court, but they can also elect to bring them to felony court, all the way up to capital punishment, death penalty cases, everything inclusive. And then civil, all kinds of civil contracts, med mal, legal malpractice, car accidents, you name it, business disputes. And then we also have the foreclosure docket.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
You
So I
know,
know-
Judge Russo, I was reading about Goddard's law.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the strongest punishment someone could get is up to a year in jail and a fine. And it's a 5th-degree felony. I don't understand. There's different degrees of felonies.
Right. So a felony 5 is the lowest level felony.
I figured.
The legislature, I don't think, thought that well through, because I remember when I first came on the bench, I hadn't been there more than 2 months, and I got a dog fighting case. And it was a felony 5 at the time, and the man had a prior history of a lot of violence, and I sent him to prison. And he was quite surprised, as were pretty much all the lawyers surprised. And I said, well, why would anybody be surprised that I would send a violent person to prison for dogfighting? There's plenty of information about the connection between cruelty to animals and violence against people.
Absolutely.
Right. So in Goddard's law, now I actually sent a man put bleach on a cat.
Oh, I want to talk to you about that case, but go ahead. Yeah.
And
Wait,
I sent
what
him
is the Goddard's law? I know Dick
Goddard's
Goddard.
law. It's an
What is
animal.
Goddard's
It's the
law?
animal abuse law, where they tried to tighten it up to give us more options, but they really didn't give us that many options. And this cat case is kind of the example. I think it's the first one, I think, that was tested in the state. And he was pouring bleach over this cat, and I sent him to prison, and it got reversed because the cat, they couldn't prove at the state that the cat belonged to a particular person. So Goddard's law, I think, has a flaw, because it seems that the way the Court of Appeals interpreted it, that this loophole might be that if the animal is a stray, you can basically do whatever you want to it. And because it's not a, quote, companion animal, which I hope that they're going to change. I I don't know if the animal rights activists are paying any attention to that case and doing anything about it, but it's a good reason to go back to the legislature and say, look, you need to tighten this up, because you shouldn't be allowed to pick up a dog on the street and you don't know who it belongs to, that maybe they don't have a tag or whatever, but they're an animal, right? They're clearly what's considered a pet kind of animal, and then do whatever you want to it and walk away from it. So I don't know. It was disturbing to me, but that's how laws get changed, is they have to get tested and talked about.
So was that man that poured the bleach on the kitten, you had convicted him, but then another court overturned it. Was he released and didn't have to serve any punishment?
He had actually served the sentence by the time the appeal went through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What was the sentence?
1 year in prison.
Oh, good. The full sentence.
Yeah.
So a police officer can arrest someone for animal abuse in Ohio.
Yes.
So if I'm a good Samaritan and I see a dog in a hot car, and say I go and break the window to get that dog, to save that dog, would I be arrested? Would I be charged with anything as a good Samaritan?
I don't know the absolute answer to that question, but I will tell you that my understanding is no, you would not be arrested. The most you could possibly get charged with would be vandalism, but I can't imagine any police department doing that, because the police break the windows to get the dogs out, right? I know. Right. I just got a new car, and my keys got locked in it because of some quirk. My phone was near my keys when I put my purse in it, and apparently everybody be forewarned, if your phone is near your keys and you close the door, your keys might be locked in there, which I didn't know. It's part of the new technology. But anyway, the police, when I called them, the first thing they asked me is there an animal or a child in the car? So they really prioritize those.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think, so I'm assuming that the laws go state by state.
Right.
Animal rights law. Okay. So do you feel as though in the state of Ohio, the punishment is strong enough? Should it be longer? Should it be more expensive? Would that be a deterrent? Would that be helpful if it were more strict? I guess is what I'm trying to say.
My personal opinion should be much tougher, because again, there is a tremendous amount of literature and case histories about people who harm animals being violent and harmful towards humans. So to me, it's a good argument to say, look, this is a person who has a propensity to violence and torture, and we're going to punish it. There's going to be a consequence, and just because it's an animal shouldn't be an excuse.
My worry is in these houses where women are withstanding this abuse, that the animal is getting abused also. And so, if the woman leaves with the kids, what becomes of the pet? I always, because sometimes the pet is the only loving thing they have.
Right. And there is a lot in domestic violence studies that show that an abuser will abuse the animal as a form of abusing the partner.
Correct.
Yeah. It's, it's a control tactic. It's a manipulation. So I hope that more shelters will be built where people can bring their pets, because I totally understand why somebody wouldn't leave. I wouldn't leave if it meant that I had to leave them behind. So we're forcing people that are in domestic violence situations to live in unsafe places, live on the streets, live in their cars. But when you take a pet in, you're responsible. It's like my dad used to always tell me, he was a police officer, and he used to always say this to me, Nancy, if a person will abuse an animal, they will abuse anybody. Yeah. Because an animal is equivalent to a toddler. So beware.
How true.
Yeah. And I've never forgotten that he said that to me. He was very aware of it.
I'm wondering, with these puppy mills, I know that USDA does inspections of them, not very well. Okay. But how can I say, is there anything you as a judge in the Court of Common Pleas can do about puppy mills? Or is that a federal government thing, USDA.
Well, the state probably could do inspections, and they probably should. What they need to do is require stricter registration and qualifications for anybody to breed. And if you're caught breeding without a license, then you get shut down. That's actually how I got started in rescue. Ironically enough, I had a friend who wanted to get a schnauzer, and I had, at the time, Butler and Maximus were my two dogs. And I kept seeing this ad in the Plain Dealer when they used to advertise dogs, and they were for schnauzers. And it was almost like a universe in my ear kind of thing, because for 3 Sundays in a row, I kept reading this ad, and I thought to myself, something's wrong. These dogs aren't getting adopted. What is going on here? And it was just a gut feeling. So I said to my friend, let's go to this place and get your dog. So we pull up to this place, and it's an awful, awful situation. There were 5 puppies, schnauzers, and 2 parents. The parents were in the house. The puppies were all outside, and this was early fall. They were all sick. They were underfed. As it turned out, they all had parasites. They all had tonsil problems. And I took one look at these 5 dogs, and I said to I had 2 friends with me, a man and a woman. And I told them both, I said, get in the car. We're taking all 5 dogs. And they said, are you crazy? And I said, just get in the car. Just trust me. Get in the car. So they get in the car. I said, get as many as you can get in the car, and then get the rest of them in the car. So I go in the house, and I tell the woman, I'm taking all 5 puppies, and I give her a check for all 5 puppies, right? And she's happy. And then on the way home, I call my bank. I said, cancel this check. So
what a great idea.
So I got,
oh, I love that.
So I got all the dogs home, and like, what are we going to do with 5 dogs? So we start placing them. Each of them took one. I took one. We had 2 left. We placed the other 2, like within 24 hours. Everybody took them to the vet. They were all very, very ill. They all survived, but they were all very, very ill. We got it all documented. And the woman called my office, because my office number was on the check on the Monday morning after she called my office, really indignant, and said to my bailiff, I want to talk to Nancy Russo right now. And Dina said, who is this? And the lady gave her a name. And I told Dina, be aware. And Dina said, really, you sure you want to talk to her? Are you absolutely sure you want to talk to her?
Bring it on.
And the woman,
this is the best.
It was hilarious. And the woman says, yeah, she canceled a check on me. And Dina said, yeah, because you're the woman that abused all those dogs. So if you want to talk to Judge Russo, you're welcome to do that. But please be advised, she's already notified all the law enforcement in your county. And I did. I called everybody. That's how I got involved in rescue. It was crazy. And so I have no use for puppy mills and irresponsible breeders. And
I love it.
It's awful what people do. I mean, it's just awful what people do. And I had that one dog that I kept, Angel, for the longest time.
Mm-hmm. Tell Janet about Angel. I didn't tell her about that.
Well, that was Angel 1. Angel 1 was my first rescue. And then I had one flown in from Iowa who had distemper.
Puppy mill.
Yep, Claire. And she lived 5 years. She was a sweetheart. But then I had Angel. I adopted her 5 years ago. She was probably 4 at the time. Her back legs didn't work at all. The vet said that they couldn't tell if it was genetic, but they thought it was more injury. She was found in a field in Kissimmee, Florida. How she survived Florida, I'll never know. But interesting thing, I didn't know this, that Delta Airlines, their pilots and attendants and staff donate miles for transport of animals, which I didn't know. And they donated their time and their money, and they flew Angel up to a rescue here. Well, she couldn't get rescued, and so I got called because I think when I adopted the dog with distemper, I got on some kind of a list of call this woman in Cleveland because she'll take anybody. Yeah. And so I've had 2 distempered dogs, one with 3 legs, one with paralyzed legs, whatever. And maybe she'll take her. And I went and I saw her. They had her sitting in a cage because she couldn't control going to the bathroom. And I said, I'll take her. So I took her, and we had a wonderful time, Angel and I. I love her so much. She just died unexpectedly a year ago next week. but I trained her to go to the bathroom in the sink so that she wouldn't have as many accidents. But of course, the situation with her legs, she had a lot of UTIs and she developed some kidney problems. But I took her to work every day too. And she was just an amazing personality. So yeah, it's hard, but it's so gratifying.
Hey, did you know that for dogs and cats that could benefit from a prescription diet, Blue Buffalo offers natural veterinary diets formulated by animal nutritionists and veterinarians for certain dietary needs like kidney support, weight management, gastrointestinal support, and my particular favorite, dermatology. They make a food allergic diet that's an alligator-based called NP or a hydrolyzed salmon-based for dogs and cats called HF. Contact your veterinarian about these prescription Blue Buffalo diets.
I was going to tell Dr. Russo about Incontinent Kitty that lived in your barn, and the cat's name was Incontinent Kitty.
Well, actually, it was Boboli after the pizza. But you know, Janet, you need to tell her about Libby, because Libby, your dog, was found in a field. Well, tell her the whole story. Go ahead, Janet.
Well, I've been told secondhand, but was found, she'd escaped a puppy mill and got hit by a car or a truck and had like a shattered hip and was kind of left for dead. But the puppy
in a
mill
field.
guy in a field called Sandy at Golden Treasures, right?
Right.
And Sandy said, I'll come and get her, and got her. And then Dr. Day fixed her hip, and she's our puppy. This is not her now. She's on her way up here, but she's fantastic. You would not know anything was wrong with her. And she was fostered by a woman by the name of Erin, who was amazing, because think of it, it was a puppy for its first 10 months to a year, had to be on a leash because she couldn't run because of the surgery. And now you'd have no idea. She runs, she swims, she's amazing. And she's great.
The good thing is she got out of that puppy mill.
She got out of the puppy mill. She escaped.
Yeah. I really wish that Ohio would crack down. I wish the entire country would crack down on it. It is disgusting to me that we allow people to treat animals the way they treat animals.
Yes.
And to me, it says a lot about values.
A lot of the groups that run puppy mills treat their women accordingly.
Doesn't surprise me.
At least from what I've seen from when in my veterinary career, when I go on to farms, to see the livestock. But I did see that 24 groups headed by the Ohio division of the Humane Society of the United States is trying to present Governor DeWine legislation that he would rule against puppy mills. But from my understanding is it's always opposed by the strong farm lobby in Ohio, which has a lot of money, and they don't want us going in and seeing how they're handling some of the livestock. So that's what I've always heard was the barrier to getting strong domestic animal laws for abuse in Ohio. I don't know how true that is.
I've heard that same analysis, but I hope it is overcome or isn't true, because in essence, that is an endorsement of abuse.
Yes.
That's an endorsement. If you say, just because you have the money and the lobbying power, we're going to turn our head, then you are basically saying, we don't think your behavior is incorrect or wrong, and we're approving of it. And that's pretty dangerous, because I will say that I have seen, and it may not sound related, but to me it is related, because the escalation of violence in general is so extreme right now. I've been on the bench 27 years. I've never seen this kind of violence against other people, particularly in the domestic violence sphere. It is frightening to me how many domestic violence cases there are. And there is an increase in this collateral damage of animals. I had another case where a man repeatedly raped his daughter, beat his wife, and set the apartment on fire, and deliberately put their dog in a cage so the dog would die in the fire, which it did. But yet, there's no real charge for that. They didn't even charge that. It was pre-Goddard's law. They didn't even charge it. And that, to me, you're basically saying to abusers, okay, if you say to an abuser, it's okay to abuse an animal, you're saying to somebody, well, you're empowered now to abuse whoever you want. You can't really cut that off and make a distinction. Abuse is abuse.
And what is worse than being in a cage and being in a fire or being thrown in a river. I'm seriously in a cage. And to think that there's no legislation against that. My feeling with these legislators is, who wouldn't vote against animal cruelty? What argument could you have to say that that isn't wrong?
Right.
I don't understand it. I just don't.
Well, they're never really asked that question, are they? They're never really asked, why are you voting against it?
True.
That's true.
I guess you're right. I would love to put my phone in their face and record and say, give me the reason that you think animal cruelty is okay.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure that they're pretending that that's not what they're saying, but it is what they're saying.
Yeah, it is.
It's no different than the argument of saying that if they said it's okay to carry a gun everywhere you go and there could be no restrictions, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, there are supposed to be rules and expectations and consequences if you don't follow them. So allowing one form of abuse is essentially saying it's okay. You're an abuser, that's okay. It's fine. You have a lot of money. You're a big lobby. I don't know, but I've heard that's the same argument I've heard from people in rescue, that's why it doesn't happen. It's the farm lobby, but I don't know if it's true. But I do think the animal rights groups should start making a lot more noise when they have these hearings. They need to go down and be loud.
Yeah, and get in their face. And here's my argument with that: it's okay to abuse a farm animal, but not a domestic animal. An animal is an animal. They have nervous systems, they have feelings, they have emotions. Why is it okay to torture a pig? I mean, that makes no sense to me at all. I would get arrested for filming that on their property, but they're not going to get arrested for that torture.
Right.
It makes no sense to me, as a lot of society anymore doesn't make sense to me. So, yeah.
I think too that it would be helpful if the people involved in rescue could reach out to younger people, because they are much more, I think, prepared to take those arguments about not abusing any animals. I think, there's a lot of passion with younger people about that issue, but we don't really tap into it much. And I'd like to see them be brought more into the rescue kind of effort, to be taught that. When I talk to people about puppy mills, most people don't know anything about it. And I start to tell them stories. Oh, they'll drown them, they'll shoot them. And they look at me in horror. And I said, don't ever do that. And then I wonder, how do you get around the conundrum of all the animals that are in puppy mills that don't have a chance? And people will say, well, then if I get a dog from the puppy mill, then I'm helping. Well, you are and you aren't. You're helping one animal, but you're perpetuating a system. That's why the state has to get involved in it.
Well, and the sad thing about domestic violence is those children are exposed to it, and it carries on in this ongoing cycle.
Right.
I work with in the nonprofit world, and I'll never forget, it was Thanksgiving Eve, and we always closed early. And this woman showed up at the door, and it's cold. It was cold. And she had on like a giant man's t-shirt from here, like down to her knees. And she had a 3-year-old with her. And she was in Spanish, and one of our caseworkers was working with her, and she said, go get food. That boy hasn't eaten in 3 days. The woman had no shoes on, and her abuser would take her shoes and leave her naked in the house, because then she couldn't leave. So we got her into a women's shelter, into a safe home, and the whole thing with the kid. But it was one of those things that just rattles you, that you cannot believe a human does that to another human. And another thing that's on the rise is the homeless population currently in the United States I'm trying to think of what it's called. They are immigrants from other countries who are what is it called? Unescorted children.
Oh, yeah.
And they are being sex trafficked.
Oh, yeah.
Because they get here, they have no money. And it's just to think about, how could you do this?
Yeah.
They're leaving gangs, right, in their countries, and they're coming here for safer. And then they end up, because they don't have any money, involved in sex trafficking. And it's just mind blowing.
I've been told by people in law enforcement that Cleveland is one of the main human trafficking stops.
And why is that? Is it en route to somewhere else?
So when I drive on 80 to come see you, Alice, in the rest areas, there's signs, truckers for trafficking, showing truckers what to look for.
Oh,
Like they don't look you in the eye. They're holding that person, and so it's in all the truck stops, which is actually kind of a smart place to put it. But
yeah.
I think because it's through the middle of the interstate, that's the only thing I can think of.
Well, I heard Toledo was
Yeah,
too
well,
for
that
some
this
reason.
whole corridor, because it's going along and it's
Mhm.
going along Canadian coast, and there's access to water. There's transport by
That's
water,
true.
and there's transport by rail, and there's transport by wheel. So, yeah, that's a whole another problem, and I just don't understand where we lost our humanity.
I don't either.
Perfectly said.
Hmm.
The only good bit of news that I saw this morning, one of my two dogs, they're in here now, is from China. She's a China rescue because they eat them
I know.
there. They put them on slaughter trucks. The Yulan Meat Festival, which is 365 days a year, but peaks now. And talking about the younger generation maybe being more knowledgeable about this, they only had a third of the people that normally attend that festival. So there's some progress there.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
I was lucky to get one that would have been on a truck. And I tell my husband every day, I wish we would have got her litter mates. I'd love to get all of them. China Rescue Dogs is very active in that. Yeah.
Do they bring them over?
Yes, and it's expensive because if they're brought over as cargo, it's more expensive than if, say, I go over there to do business and bring a dog back with me. It's still expensive, but it's less than the cargo. And then, of course, you got to go through CDC and all their requirements, which actually are changing August 1st. So it's a bit of a paperwork nightmare, but China Rescue Dogs does a great job. And another group that my other rescue is from, Golden Treasures, which we've had Sandy on the show before. She just picked up a dog from the Amish, Doggled Trump. His name was. It's a male golden retriever, Doggled Trump, and Doggled, which is unusual that they would get rid of a male.
Yeah.
Okay, but anyway, yeah, she got Doggled Trump. But I said to Sandy, "How do you do it? How do you stay nice to these people?" She said, "Alice, if I'm not nice, they won't call me. They'll put a bullet in the head, or they won't even waste money on a bullet. They'll drown him."
Right.
So, as much as the bad that Sandy sees, she gets them out of there. A lot of them are heartworm positive. It's $3,000 for us to treat them. Fine, we do it. But and your dog had surgery. We've had some with broken pelvis. It's a nightmare. And I think I would lose my mind if I went with her just once to
Yeah.
pick up one of these dogs because I just can't take it.
Yeah, I don't think I would be well suited to that. I
I don't know how you do it, Judge Russo, when you see all that cruelty. I don't know how it has to haunt you.
Well, there is a thing in law that I think is probably true of any profession that's dealing with bad people or people who are in crisis or people who are victims is secondary trauma. And I know for me, I definitely feel it from cases I've had, listening to stories of horrible things that have happened to people, the facts of crimes, autopsy photos, brutal killings, and people in rescue are seeing this. They're seeing horrible things, and we don't pay enough attention to how that affects us. No matter what it is we're doing, if it's you as a veterinarian going to those places and seeing animals being abused, those traumatic experiences are translating into our own environments and our experiences. And there's very little conversation about it. I know in our court, I've tried many times to get secondary trauma counseling for all of our staff, whether it's probation officers, clerks, uh, court staff, judges, because we're all exposed, court reporters, we're exposed every day to this. And when I talk to staff about it, they will talk openly about, oh, yeah, I had this case about this brutal torture. I still can't get it out of my head. I had this person that I had to interview for a sentencing, and he told me all the things that happened to him in his life. We live in an environment anymore where there's so much information that some of the information is becoming very weighty for the rest of us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Every year, and we're going again this year, we go to the Humane Society of Summit County Plausibility Ball. It's a big fundraiser. And so we buy a table and we make like a family reunion. Janet comes from Connecticut. Sometimes my other sister comes from Memphis. But the what I've noticed, and Janet, I think you've agreed with me, when we go and mingle with the other tables, it's mostly all lawyers and judges.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes.
You people are very big animal lovers. Judge Spicer underwrites the whole thing. So I saw her dog, and let me tell you a story about her. She's retired now, but she was in the parking deck downtown Akron, which you know how that is now, and there was a black pit bull hanging around. Well, it belongs to Judge Spicer now, and I ended up seeing that dog. But yes, I have to say, you legal people, you have hearts of gold. I mean, Janet, how many times have we been there? 30 years we've been going. And I think the majority of tables are legal people.
That's interesting.
I commend you for that.
There's at least 2 other judges in my building that bring their dogs to work on a regular basis.
Oh.
And we just started doing, we just did it. And all rooms that have it, every judge that's doing that has visitors coming to and the dogs are their own personalities now. Everybody knows the dogs' names. And for Lorenzo, when I come in, I went in a couple of days last week and I didn't bring him because I was going to be in a trial and I didn't know if there would be enough visitors to entertain him. And I get all these questions. Where's Lorenzo? Not good morning, not how's your day. It's like, where's Lorenzo? Where's Lorenzo?
I have to tell you, I belong to Cleveland Derm Society, and it's a human dermatology thing. And so 4 times a year at each hospital, UH, Metro, Cleveland Clinic, Northeast Ohio College of Medicine, they have 25 human derm patients that have pretty tough diseases. And they're each put in an exam room. And then all of the local human dermatologists come and they go into the room and they ask the patient questions and, try to help with their therapy. Well, they invite me to bring a pet. And so I'll bring one with a skin disease, usually something that's common to human and animals. And sadly, people will come in and go, where's the dog? Is Alice here? And of course, I'm there with the dog. I'm never there without because I don't want to disappoint. They don't come to see me. They come to see the dog. But I get it because I'll tell you, your heart goes out to these pets. And they're just non-judgmental. They're welcoming. Like, I can't imagine Lorenzo. I mean, does he have his own bed there?
He has. It's like his separate house. He has his own bed, just like Angel did, his own bed and toys and treats so that he's fully entertained. He does like to eat the rug a little too much. So we're trying to break him of that habit.
He'll grow out of that.
He'll grow out of it. And the other day, it was so funny. There's the way our courtrooms are set up. I call him my roommate, Judge Vaudry's across the hall from me, and he's another big animal lover. But his dog, Dewey, he said, is not tame enough to come to court. But Lorenzo is fascinated with Judge Vaudry, and he will run across from my office to his and just sit at his door until Judge Vaudry will open the door. So the other day, Judge Vaudry realized Lorenzo wanted to talk to him. He opened the door, and then there was a period of zoomies was going. And he was everywhere. And this whole group of people just laughing. And I thought, it's so nice that an animal can do that. And we need to protect them. They give us a lot.
You need that. You need that lightness to your day.
Yeah.
You really do. No one ever said you couldn't do that because I'm thinking you're the judge. Who's going to tell you you can't bring your dog? I mean, really, it would be God. I mean, who's going to tell you, no, you're not allowed to do that?
Well, here's a funny story. When I would bring Angel in, Angel came in a buggy because she couldn't walk, obviously. And she had her own buggy. And so we would come in the buggy, and I got a call one day from a reporter who somebody in the building decided they wanted to make trouble for me and called this reporter and said, she's bringing a dog in the building. So the reporter calls me and he goes, is it true you have a dog in the building? I said, yeah. And he goes, well, what's the story? I said, why don't you come up and meet her? And he comes up and I introduce him to Angel and I tell him Angel's story. And it became this piece about this wonderful dog, this wonderful rescue story. And then backing up on that, Channel 5 then did a visual piece on those of us that bring our dogs. And they interviewed each one of us with our dogs. And they did a piece about dogs in the courthouse. And it was so well received. It's like, you can try to
turned it completely around. Yeah, you turned it completely around.
Right. The reporter what thought he was going to have a gotcha. And I'm like, fine, come up and meet her. Write whatever you want to write, but come up and meet her.
Well, Judge Russo, I'm going to ask you our question. What is your pet or human peeve? Like, what makes you nuts?
What makes me nuts?
And it could be even something simple. We've asked other guests this, like people that don't use a turn signal, things like that.
I would say for me, it is people who are not accountable.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Really good answer.
I would agree with that as a veterinarian. Accountable and / responsible, because I think they're connected.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can deal
That's
with
a good
somebody
answer.
who's doing the wrong thing if they're accountable for it. I'll do anything I can to help. But if you're not going to hold yourself accountable for it and you're going to deny it, then.
And that's true, because education is part of that. They may not be aware that, okay, you can't slap a cat on the head, and here's why. Even though I'll slap them on the head and say, how you like it. But that's another story. See, it's a good thing. I was telling my husband today, it's a good thing that I'm not in charge of prisons. And there's a reason he does not want me to have a gun. But I will tell you, Judge Russo, in Florida, where we go in Sanibel, the Lee County Animal Abuse Unit had me in because they have a 3-legged dog that was having some skin problems. And let me tell you, Captain Marcino's motto is, you abuse an animal, you go to jail in Lee County. Okay. So we were talking and he was saying to me, there's 3 billion people in this world and 4 billion guns.
Wow.
Whoa.
And how scary is that? And there was, while I was there was this dirtbag that shot a wife abuser, shot the dog in the face. And luckily it went here and out here. And Captain Marcino was saying that, we could have our guys at a bank robbery, but when an animal abuse case comes in, they drop everything and go to that site. But anyway, that dog was rehomed, and that dirtbag, the nice thing about it is when they're arrested for animal abuse, it kind of opens their home up for anything else they're doing wrong. Yep. And so the charges are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah.
Well, maybe we should look at Florida's laws.
Tough. Yeah. Just tough.
I don't know if you know this, but several of the Ohio prisons have dog training programs where
I do know that.
Yeah. And
yes,
impressive.
Yes. And actually, what is the one in Lorain, Ohio?
Grafton.
The prison? Grafton. I had a client who was a psychologist there, and she would tell me about the dog programs. Actually, she took her dog there with her. Yeah.
Yeah. Northeast has a grooming class and a dog training class, and Grafton has the training class, and they work with I know Grafton works with Berea Animal Rescue, and they take as the strays and things come in that aren't trained, they take them. But to get in that program as a resident of Grafton, for you to get in that program, you have to have an impeccable compliance record. You can't have any what they call tickets, any bad behavior. That's a reward, and the dogs stay with them, sleep with them. I teach a class out there, and every once in a while I'll have a guy in my class that has the dog, and I'm always so excited, like, oh God, I got a dog in class. I'm excited about that. But it's very impressive, and they do a wonderful job. I just feel bad if I were in their situation, how hard it would be to let that dog go. You know that you're helping that dog go on, but think about being in a prison setting and you have this companion and this bond, and then you got to let him go.
Is Grafton what's like the worst crime you would get? And it's not murderers in there, right?
They do have people in there that have committed murders, but it's what's called low security. So
low security, that's the word.
Yeah, Ohio went to what they call a tier system where they rate people in prison by risk level. So if you're a gangbanger and you're really violent, you're going to go to one facility, and you can work your way down. Even if you go to a high facility with a murder case, you can work your way down through programming and behavior. And the reward is when you get to a place like Grafton, it's like being at a campus on a college. There's different dorms, and it's wide open space. There's still rules. I mean, it's still a prison. But when I go to teach, I'm walking the yard, and there's all kinds of people walking the yard. There's COs
Yeah.
walking the yard, inmates walking the yard. I'm there. There's people with dogs. There's guys playing basketball. So it's almost like an honor system in a way. It's been very effective. They started doing this a couple years ago, calling it a tier system. But it also helped protect people in prison, because when you had the very violent people in with the people who might have had a bad crime but were not preternaturally violent, you were getting a lot of inmate on inmate crime. So now it's like Toledo is almost all gang members. So they have much higher level security. Guards are trained different. There's less free time, more time in the cell, things like that. So I think it was a great idea. I do think they've done a good job with it.
Do you get a lot of repeat offenders in your court for various things?
Yeah.
We do. So don't you want to say to them, what's the problem here? Don't you learn, or just they don't have the opportunity, or what?
Well, I think I run the reentry court too, and the reentry court lets people out of prison early and gives them a special form of supervision. We have a 93% success rate. It's the best rate I can find anywhere in the country, and we follow them for 3 years. But our approach is one of an entire umbrella of support. So when you come out, we're there to connect you with services, help you get, if you want to go to college, we're going to help you get enrolled. If you're looking for a job, we're going to help you with that. I think that the difference between what our people accomplish, our clients in reentry, and what others don't accomplish is there's real no direction. When people in prison in Ohio get let out, they basically are just turned out at the gate.
Okay. And that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, you've been inside for a while.
Yeah.
Talk about trauma. There's trauma going into prison. There's trauma coming out of prison. They don't do any kind of psychological outtake. I've always thought that the prisons should do what they call like an exit interview, where they're assessing the needs before they leave. But if you don't have somebody out on the outside who's going to supervise you and be your person to go to, and you're thrown back into the streets, first of all, there's a lot of people in the streets that want you back in the streets with them because they don't want to see you succeed. That's part of it. And then there's economic issues, So we need to do a much better job about helping people re-enter our communities as a whole.
Boy, that makes such sense, especially the exit interview part. Yeah.
Some of them don't even have a place to live when they're released.
Yeah, true.
But they still release them because their time's up.
Judge Russo, we can't thank you enough. Thank you for bringing
Oh my gosh, I have learned so much.
Me too. We appreciate you. Thank you. And to be womanly always, discouraged never.
That's right.
Ooh,
do you remember
Janet.
that?
That's right.
Janet.
That's from the symphony, the Chi Omega Symphony.
Were you ever in Chi Omega? Did you serve as an officer in Chi Omega?
No, but I did serve as an advisor to the Stanford University chapter when they were coming.
But in
on
your
board.
chapter, were you an officer? Mm-hmm. I was the GTB.
Of course you were, with the gavel. That was like practice.
Yeah, that was practice.
I love it.
But I loved it.
Well, I
loved it.
Well, I did too. I loved it too. I lived in the house for 2 years. I loved it. We had 48 women in the house. It was a blast.
All right. Well, when I see you, we've got to do the handshake.
Absolutely.
I'll have to turn my head.
No. Just listen very closely. And then we would have told you, but you'll still know.
There's secret words and everything now.
Hey, listen, Judge Russo, I hope I don't have to see you for Lorenzo. I hope he never has any skin problems. But I can't wait to meet him someday.
Well, I'm going to send you some pictures.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you. I got to scoot. Okay, bye, guys.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. We hope you found the science-based information provided helpful in taking care of your pet. Check out our other Speaking of Pets episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
We'd love to hear from you. So email your pet photos and/or pet peeves to contact@speakingofpetspod.com. Remember to follow Speaking of Pets on all social media.